I'm your guest today because I am brutally honest about experiences in my life. I don't hold back. These experiences have happened because we do have stories we need to tell. Without those experiences, how can we tell stories to pass on to other people? So, therefore, these stories today I'm going to tell you are a variety of festival experiences that I've mashed into one. So it might end up being a long story, it might end up being a short one. As always, these stories are unscripted, so forgive any stuttering or things like that. So, anyways, as you're young, we do experiment with drugs and alcohol. Not only that, at every festival, it's well known that these experiences are occurring with 89% of the participants that are there. So taking that on board, I'm going to talk openly and honestly about that consumption, about some of those experiences, and some of them are downers, some of them uppers, some of them might be funny. Some of you guys might enjoy, some of you might think a bit too honest. But anyway, so young fella at a festival. This time at this one, I was with my girlfriend at the time, Kylie. Having a really good time. It's a 3-day festival. And anyways, we smoke all of our weed on the first day that we get there, sit down, we're all set up the tents, as you do, you end up chopping up and end up smoking a sesh and the weed's all gone within the first day. You haven't even gone and seen any bands yet. So, later on that afternoon, me and Kylie went hunting around the festival to see if we could go and get some buds. So we did. We ended up, running into some people, which is really interesting. Other people are like, we might be able to get you some, give us some money and we'll come back. Didn't really trust that. And anyways, we ended up running into some guys that had a really good setup. And they said, no worries, come in with us. We've got some buds, we'll shout you a sesh. And we'll give you something to take away. And anyway, so me and Kylie are sitting there, we're like, all right, cool, come into their tent, sat down. As I said, we're sitting there, all chillaxing, chopping up, talking about, how we're all looking forward to the bands and everything like that. And there's a picture up on the wall of a girl out of a People magazine, and they punch one of their friends there, and they go, that's one of Matt's cousins. Yeah, she's a porn star, and we all get to hang her up on the window and fantasize about her and make fun because it's his cousin, and he can't, so, we all laughed and giggled about that, thought it was quite hilarious, and we're having a couple of billies and, getting along really well. And I thought, after a while, these guys seem really familiar, really familiar. Where do I know them from? And I'm kind of scratching my head going, I know them from somewhere, where do I know them from? And anyways, with their accents and everything like that, they were happening too, and we started conversations and that, and they're laughing and giggling with the, kind of secretive behaviour, and so we're like, all right, let's go on. And then all of a sudden it dawned on me after, good 15 minutes or 20 minutes of being with them, of the band Blink 182. And I was like, no way. And I leaned over and I said that to Kylie, and she just went white for a minute. And she was like, yeah, I think so. Anyway, so we're like, oh my God, really? We're literally smoking bongs with Blink 182 at the moment. This is awesome. Anyways, so we didn't want to hang around too long, embarrassed, and we ended up getting some buds off them, going back to our tent and, really celebrating the fact that we just had a session with Blink 182, as far as we know anyway. And we walked away with that belief that we did. So later on, a couple of hours later in the afternoon, we're walking through the festival area. We've already enjoyed a couple of bands. We've enjoyed the feud and that. And anyways, we're making our way back to our tent, and there's two old fellas there, and they say, hey, come over here, kids. Come over here. We're like, all right. So we walk over, and they go, we've got acid. This is, really, okay. And they pull out some cardboard. It was just brown cardboard. And they say they tear off a little bit and they tear it in half and they go, here, have some each. And if you like it, come back and you can buy some more. And we're like, nah, all right. So we both walked away before we took it, thinking, we're not going to pass out straight away in front of these guys. So anyways, all right, let's give it a go. We're at a festival. So we did. We put this cardboard under our tongue and we chewed on it, sucked on it. A couple of minutes later, nothing really happened, And anyway, so we crossed the bridge to go back into the festival. And there's one of those trains that go around the festival. Little tractor with the trailers on the back of it that make a train up. That kind of a train. So anyways, me and Kylie jump on the back of the train, and anyways, go around the festival a bit and we're laughing and we're giggling and, having a lot of fun. And anyways, we go around one of the stops and all of a sudden, I said to Kylie, quick, jump off, unlock the door, jump off. And we both unlock the door and we jump out and run away. And then I scream out, we didn't pay for our tickets. And me and her ended up rolling on the ground in hysterics. We're absolutely cracking up laughing, screaming, yeah, we didn't pay for our tickets. And literally the train driver pulled up and he looked at us, had a giggle himself and just kept on driving. So me and her were like, all right, we weren't hallucinating. We didn't see any mushrooms. We did get a giggle, but it was definitely a placebo effect. It was really nothing, up and beyond about the cardboard, other than that it was cardboard. Later on, it could have been the second night or another night. Festival's pumping, man. Everything's kicking off. We're loving it. Bands are cranking. We're smoking. We ended up getting pills off someone, so we're all pumping and that. And anyways, we're walking around the side of one of the big performance tents, and I look into the side of it, and there's a guy sitting there with his briefcase open. A briefcase sitting there in front of him, and I nudged Kylie, and I said, look at that. And she goes, what do you reckon that is? I said, that's a drug deal, man, for sure. And she's like, no, right there. And I said, yeah, look around. There's no coppers, no nothing. Like, what's the pull up? And she goes, I dare you to walk in and ask for something. And I was like, no way, starting to shake at the knees. And she goes, yeah, I dare you. And I was like, So I did. I walked, chest pumped up, and I walked in and I said, hey, mate, how you doing? What do you got? And he says, what do you want? And I says, it depends on what you got. And he goes, no, mate, what do you want? And I was like, have you got any weed? And he just shut his briefcase straight away and was like, no. And I was like, okay. And walked away, thinking, oh my God, just embarrassed myself. But yeah, I think 99% sure that was fully a drug dealer with his briefcase. I was, he's probably expecting me to ask for cocaine, ecstasy, or some other expensive drug, but being a young hippie myself, empty pockets kind of thing. So anyways, I come back out to her and I said that to her and she goes, yeah, for sure, Anyway, night moves on. We're literally now inside one of the big marquees, night's pumping, and, it must be like 12 o'clock in the night. Everyone's muted, munted, beyond the point. Anyways, and thousands of people pumping in this marquee. And then one young fella decides, best idea I've got, he's going to climb up one of the poles and then climb up one of the wires, the big fat wires that actually hold the marquee up, to get a better view of the band. And anyways, as he's made his way up, the security guards have seen him, made their way towards the front. He's gotten literally now up halfway up this wire and he's hanging off. He's going, yeah, awesome, woo. And then the security guards have come up and they grabbed the pole and they started shaking it, mate, you've got to come down. And he's now lost some grip and he's now hanging from the wire with his two hands, no longer in that koala position. And, he's starting to freak out a bit and he's like, oh my God, and they're like, you got to get down. And he's like, I can't drop. The band continues to play on anyway. They're like, oh my God, what do we do? The young fella, his grip is now slipping down this wire, heading towards the pole. So he's not sliding with a great momentum, but he's gripping and slipping down the wire at the same time. And you can see that his hands are burning, he's in pain. Anyways, he slips all the way to the pole, eventually, gets his arms around the pole. You can see now his palms are actually bleeding. And there's blood coming out of his palms. You can see that he's injured as he kind of climbs back down that pole with his forearms instead of his full grip of his hands. Makes his way down the bottom. Security guards crash tackle him and they take him out. And we're all like, whoa, that was pretty full on. The band plays on and the night continues. Everyone's loving life. Just having a drink of water. Yeah. Night continues, everyone's loving life. Anyways, later on that night, we all go back to our camp areas. We're all chillaxing, and I can imagine there's people tripping balls. For us, we're still high tripping. Just loving life, all gathering around, chatting as you do in the festival campground. And unbelievably so, there was someone who was dressed up like the cat from Lucky Lottery, a black and white cat, full, really well done face, makeup, full tail, and they were walking around on their two legs and sometimes on their fours and rubbing up against people, going into their campsite and, were looking around, sitting down in the chair and, pretending to smoke cigarettes and imitate people that were smoking. It was really interesting, kind of blew my mind. And Lucky Cat come in and around with us. He came in, we're all sitting around on the picnic blanket, dribbling shit. And Lucky Cat come up, and he's there. And it's a cat person. It's this guy, woman with whiskers, feline teeth, the ears, it's a black cat. There's a giant black cat now in front of us with the white chest, and we're like, it doesn't say a word, it just kind of around us, and weaves its way through and then kind of and then just makes its way out of our campsite and continues on. And we're just mind blown. That was the coolest thing ever. Oh my God. Anyways, festival continues. Now with this one, it was a different friend that was next to me. Good friend, Shane. So Shane was with me on this night, and we were, very, very high with our consumptions, really kind of enjoying life. And at the time, we'd already spent all of our money. It's near the end of the night, and I said to him, "Don't worry, man. We're actually going to find some money before the end of the night." And he goes, "No way, man. Whatever." And I said, "Yeah, dead set, man. I reckon before the night's out, we're going to find some money, and it'll be enough money for us to get home, maybe even have a couple of drinks." And he goes, "Yeah, all right then." And one of the final acts was John Butler Trio. And anyways, we're literally, rocking the boat with our legs, so we find the nearest fence and we're up against the fence. We're watching this awesome show, John Butler Trio up there, lights flashing, drums playing. And anyways, we're like, yeah, cool. Kind of have to grip onto the fence to keep balance. And, we're there and, to our left, I get a tap on the shoulder and two cute girls next to us. And she says, "Oh, excuse me, man, I think you dropped this." And I look to her hand and she's holding money. And I said, "Oh, thank you. Yeah, I did. I put it in my pocket." And I was like, "Oh, thank you very much." And I said, "Oh, hold on." And I counted and it was $30, right? And I was like, "Oh, thank you very much. That was to get home and to get us a couple of extra drinks." And she goes, "Oh, yeah, no worries. Thank you." And I said, "That's awesome." And anyways, band continued. And I said, "Hey, Shano." And I showed him the money. And he goes, "Fuck off, man. No way." And I said, "I told ya." And he goes, "Whoa." Anyways, he said, "Go and buy us a couple of drinks with it." So I thought, yeah, why not? All right. So I said, "All right, I'm going to the bar, man. I'll get us Red Bull and vodka each, eh?" And that was pretty much the whole $30 gone. So it was, I think we ended up getting three, it was like $12 each or something ridiculous like that. So anyways, walking up to I said, "Bros, we'll be back in a sec, man." And now I'm literally, spaghetti legs making my way towards the bar thinking, just make it there, man, make it there. And to my right now, I'm walking, and these a big bunch of guys come together in their camaraderie, all yelling and screaming, "Woo, yeah." And, they end up falling to the ground in their big pile of people. And I look down and I think, "Oh, yeah, bros," I see one young fella at the bottom there. He's at the bottom, yeah. And then a hand came over, a pinky, into his face, and it went directly into his nose ring, which was one of the round ones. Into that, and you can tell straight away the guy pulled his hand away and the ring came with it. Yeah. So now I look down and I'm like, oh my God, the pinky's gone in. It ripped out this guy's nose ring. And for a second, there was no blood. And I was like, oh, it was straight through this flap of skin. I was like, and then after that second, the blood come pissing out, and I was like, bleh, bleh, oh my God. My spaghetti legs then turned into water. I was like almost on the floor, and then I was like, oh my God, no way. I like pick up my guts and my legs at the same time. So anyways, I picked up my legs and the guts at the same time. I was like, oh my God, that was full on disgust. Oh my God. Kind of looking back at the same time. Don't look back, don't look back. Oh my God, I'm literally now just make your way to the bar. I'm leaning backwards trying to make my way. They're going, and feeling that white sweat come up. Oh my God. I get to the bar and finally I'm waiting in line to get there. And the lady says, yeah, what do you want? 2, 3 Red Bulls and vodka, please. And then, yeah, no worries, give her the $30. And I'm standing there and it feels like I'm waiting for what seems eternity. 2 young fellas to the side of me in no clothes, literally, just their figuring nylon shorts, slide next to me. They go, hey man, I lost $30. Hey bro, I lost $30 tonight. And I looked at him and I went, I didn't say a word. I was just like, At the moment, I'm still feeling a metallic taste in my mouth because I think I'm going to faint. Anyways, it was taking forever, this girl with the drinks. And he goes, hey bro, did you find $30? I lost $30 tonight. And I just looked at her, and she hands me the drinks, and I looked at him and just walked away in this zombie state. Anyway, got back to Shano and I said, Shano, you wouldn't believe it. Friggin' nose ring just got ripped out and some random guy asked me if I found $30. Here's your drink, cheers, let's go. So we end up, we're now watching, the final finale of John Butler Trio. The finale was wicked, man. Somehow he ended up playing the drums, and the drumsticks flew off the drum, then into John Butler Trio, his hand. It was like the magic catch. Butted him up in the air, down, bounce, and into his hand. Absolute magic with a roar. Me and Shane were like, wicked, awesome. Fresh morning, yeah. Couple of fresh morning. This one. So, anyways, we're like, walking around the festival. We've got a couple of coffees in our hand, and there's rides at this festival. There's bumper cars. There's a big ride that kind of goes up and swings around at the same time. Kind of cool. Horse walks on the other side. Horse rides on the other side. Food stalls, obviously, and maybe a couple of small random rides like that as well. Anyway, walking through, we've got our coffees in our hand, and around the big ride, the one that swings up and around, a crowd is starting to gather. And we're like, oh, that's interesting. Everyone's starting to gather around. They're not lining up for the ride itself. They're gathering around. And there's more and more people start to come in. And we're like, oh, that's interesting. Wonder what happened. What's going on? And we start to make our way over. And now the person who was hosting the ride is telling everyone, please back away, give us some space. And we're like, oh, that's interesting. And we look through the crowd and we can see a body that is now under the truck. And we can kind of just see his legs. He's not moving at all. And we're like, oh my God, what has happened? In the crowd, someone starts to explain that someone was on the ride. Obviously, they were still under whatever influence from the night before, and thought it would be a good idea to try and change seats during the ride. And as that ride's gone up, it's actually projected them out of the ride itself. And when they've come around with that ride, not only have they collided with the ground, they've also collided with the truck as well, and therefore breaking their neck and whatever else injury happened at that time, and died instantly. So a few minutes later, ambulance turned up, all the sheets are put up, and none of the rides continued from the festival from there on in, other than the horse riding, and they closed down the rest of the rides from there on at that festival site, which was Glenworth Valley. And Glenworth Valley is the place of all these stories, ladies and gentlemen, too. It's the best festival place I've ever been to, by the way. So all at the same place. That's why I told you I'd like to mash them as the same story. So after that, no more rides at the festivals anymore. But the festivals also had lots and lots of food stalls, and lots of sales stores. Me and a future partner ended up running a store ourselves, selling fire dancing and circus equipment. Great story for another time. But yeah, very enjoyable time of my life. This time around the food stalls, everyone's pissed, really enjoying the festival. And there's a couple of stoner dudes lining up for their pizza. And they're like, yeah, man, having pineapple pizza, I want a pepperoni. Yeah, man, it's going to be delicious. Smells awesome. And they line up for their pizza, and they finally get it. They pay for it. And then they're like, yeah, awesome. And both of them, dead set, at the same time, turn around, and with the spin and the gravity, they spin at the same time. Both of their pizzas slide off the cardboard and then down onto the grassy, horse-fed, previous manure floor at the festival. And they've kind of both stood there, their jaws kind of dropped and their lips sunk, and they went, oh. And then both of them at the same time looked at each other and going, what do we do? And they both picked it straight back up, put it back on the cardboard, dusted it off, and kind of kept on walking. What can you help to do but laugh in that situation? Looking down at the area itself, this is an area where horses used to be, and considerably manure on the floor itself. Grass, sandy festival floor. There's been thousands of feet treading on that floor before you decided to pick your pizza back up and eat it. So anyways, we both went, oh my gosh, great story. All right, thank you very much. Remember, just take it slow next time you're turning around with the pizza boys. What else can you say? Ladies and gentlemen, I think that is one of my most open stories, that I do tell, especially coming from myself, Podgy. I do like being honest and open about it. I'm just trying to now recollect any other festival experiences that I should share with you before I go. But hey, the festivals are really enjoyable. You need to stick together as a group, especially if you are experimenting with drugs. There was a love story as well that I'll quickly tell you. Random as, we are all tripping balls one night, going for a walk just to get out amongst it. There were three of us, myself, Ashley, and I think... third guy there, we'll just call him Tom. Anyway, we're all going for a walk. We run into this random group, and Ashley starts talking to this other guy. She says, I was just thinking about axolotls, how they're evolutionary creatures. And he says, mind blowing, I was just thinking about axolotls myself. I was thinking how cool they are because they can walk on land and go in water. And, she was like, whoa, really? And he was like, yeah. And anyways, I ended up exchanging numbers, catching up throughout the festival. They ended up falling in love and continued to see each other after the festival. Ended up having a kid together and still are together to this day. So, another love story. Some friends got married at a festival one time. I thought that was pretty awesome as well. Hari Krishna kid, coming over to see our kids when we were running that stall at the festival. Great kid, but oh my God, when he passed wind, that was the worst fart I could ever smell from a kid. That was, please kid, just, leave, man. That is too much. So many a great times, and some of those unfortunately were, bad ones as well, but not for me. I've really always enjoyed them. There was one time when one of the tents burnt down, one of the Chai temple tents. There was a few candles burning. Next thing you know, a puff of smoke and a light of fire. The whole Chai temple had burnt down. The fire brigade tried coming in, but when they got close, they realised there was a river between them and the Chai tent. And they were like, oh, what do we do? So they ended up spraying it from across the river. But by that time, pretty much the whole thing had burnt down. It literally took seconds. Luckily, no one was injured, and they, ended up not spreading to any other tents as well. The three naked guys, just before I go, three naked guys thinking they're the coolest thing ever, walking around the festival naked, three young guys with just their hats on, friggin' uncircumcised, whatever, and a cop car, this cop car drives through just checking out everyone, and then they kind of slowed their pace down, and, it was paddy wagon as well, and the cops just, didn't slow down, they just kept on pacing through and went straight past them, and the boys were like, oh yeah, cool, waving their willies. They go then down to the lake, and I'm like, all right, what are they doing? They jump into the lake, have a swim around. One jumps out, freaking out, and he's like, oh my God, what the fuck? What is that? Oh my God. There was a leech on his balls. A leech had swum through the water and is now on his balls, and he's freaking out, man. He's like, what do I do? What do I do? The other two boys are still in the water, and then they realize what's on his balls, and they're like, oh my God, no way. They both start freaking out, swim out of the water to join their mate and look down, and they're twice as covered. You can actually see like 5 or 6 each on each of these guys, and they're freaking out, man. They're literally like, what do we do? We've got them all over us. What do we do? And then you see them talk to someone, and they're like, pointing towards the St. John's tent, and then the three guys end up running. They're running towards the St. John's tent, and we're all cracking up laughing. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Podgy. Thank you for letting me be your guest tonight at Consciously Evolving Enterprises. I hope you enjoyed my massive festival stories. If they didn't quite blend together, sorry, but I could tell them individually with a lot more in-depth information, but requested tonight. It was just a bit of a mashup, just to let you guys know the honesty about that experience at festivals, that people do consume drugs and alcohol, some of them recreationally, safely, and have a good time. Unfortunately, there are those people who do abuse those situations or overtake too much, or simply show off or feel they have more ability than what they do, and the negative consequences come from that. But like I said earlier, if you've got a really good support group with you, and it's well known that what your experiences are and you guys aren't hiding anything from each other, and you make that agreement about safety and closure, I think you can all have a really good time. And remember, always start small and have a safe night. Thanks, guys.